Join the Shot Talk Patreon at patreon.com/shottalk. You'll get access to bonus content, Q&A opportunities for future guests, and more. Thanks and enjoy.
I feel like there's this tendency to just default to realism.
Right.
Which is really unfortunate because that's, I don't know, to me the thing that's beautiful about animation is we can create worlds that nobody's ever seen.
Right.
You know, like why do something? Why just make the sky blue?
Hey everybody, this is Rodrigo Huerta and welcome to another episode of Shot Talk. Today we have Leighton Hickman. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, doing pretty well, thanks.
Very glad that you're here. Now Leighton, we've known each other since back in the Dreamworks days.
Yeah.
We both started
I think
up on the
2008.
same... Yeah, it was 2008 and we both started our careers on the same movie, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But no, I remember, because back when I was a young, up and coming animator, I would oftentimes wander the halls of the Dreamworks Department of Redundancy Department, and I remember I would see the pre-visualizations of the movies were always really neat because you'd have these huge matte style paintings of what eventually would turn into the movie that we saw, and I remember a lot of those actually were your paintings. I just didn't know it at the time. Because I know you did a lot of stuff on Shrek 4. For that movie, being your first one, what did you have expectations? Did you have to sort of bend to how they wanted things to be done? Or?
Yeah, so that movie was actually a really good one for me in the fact that I had a lot of great opportunities. The art directors, Max Boas and Mike Hernandez, and then the production designer, Peter Zaslov, they trusted me a lot. So I actually got to do a lot of things that generally I wouldn't have gotten done coming in as somebody straight out of school. I hadn't even finished school yet.
That's
to be honest.
That's a pretty. Oh really?
So,
You're still at Art Center.
Yeah,
in Pasadena.
I was still finishing up my last semester. I was driving to school one day, and my phone starts ringing. This is back in the days of like flip phone, cell phones.
Sure.
I barely had one. And pulled over to the side of the street. Yeah, started to crank up.
Sure.
And
you're like, Katzenberg, talk to me, baby.
Yeah. Just Jeffrey called me up and he was like, dude, we need you.
Yeah.
You got to save Shrek.
We really need your help at this point.
No, but I had a mentor, Griselda Sastro-Winata, who was working on the film, and she introduced me to them, and that's basically how I got there. But when I was there, I was super lucky because they trusted me enough that they let me do work that just isn't normally handed to people who are just starting out their career.
Yeah.
Most people, you would generally start out, your assignments are more like prop-based, because that's,
sort of the ropes for that, right?
Yeah, it's the ropes, and it's also low risk. Like currently now that I'm in a management position, like I'm a production designer, I'm leading a team of artists. When I'm assigning stuff, like if I'm not sure, what the person's skill level is, like it's always safer to assign that. So I think that's kind of why that started happening.
Yeah. And
it's always kind of been seen as almost like the journeyman, like entry thing. Like you have to get through the props first and then you can go on to the paintings.
Right.
But I was really lucky. I got to jump straight into paintings. Like I was doing big concept stuff, but
that comes from having, I would imagine, a very strong portfolio, right?
Oh yeah,
because it's all about instilling confidence in the people above you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's actually a really good point. And this is something that I've told my students throughout the years. Like I taught for 5 years, both at a Concept Design Academy in Pasadena, and then I've taught online through a few different other schools. And the one thing that I always say, because a lot of the classes are kind of like people building portfolios. They're either working in the industry or trying to get into the industry. And I always tell people, only put in the stuff that you love doing. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, you can get a job, but you might get if you put in...
No, I know what you mean.
Like just a bunch of props.
My character animation reel was I was trying to emulate the people that I admired, like Pixar and DreamWorks and Blue Sky. If I had done creature animation, there's no way somebody there would have even given me a shot. So
so you always want to put like your favorite thing to do, because at least the thing that I've seen is you get pigeonholed really quick as an artist. Like, they see one thing that you're really good at, and that's all you'll do the rest of your career. So like, if you have drawings of really cool trees in your portfolio, you better hope, that you enjoy drawing trees for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're the tree guy.
Because you'll be the tree guy. Yeah. And so for my portfolio, like, I intentionally left out props and things like that, even though I had done that in my education, and I stuck mostly to just concept paintings.
Right.
But for me, really, the thing that got me my job was my plein air painting.
Oh, cool.
Because they could see that I had an eye for, like realism, lighting, and that it's something that's important if you're going to be painting lighting keys and.
Yeah, your stuff has always had a very bold lighting choices, which I think makes, especially for films, like with when you're thinking about cinematography and this and that. Obviously, with animation, it's all made from nothing. So having a nice, strong, like I guess, direction with that is always appreciated.
Well, it's an interesting battle because back in the 2D days, like you could paint and light things in very stylized ways, and I feel like during the transition from 2D to 3D, there was this big push for people to prove that they could do realism.
Okay.
And so I feel like there's this tendency to just default to realism.
Right.
Which is really unfortunate because that's, I don't know, to me the thing that's beautiful about animation is we can create worlds that nobody's ever seen.
Right.
Like why do something? Why just make the sky blue?
Right.
Why, I mean, I do like having, like realistic light physics and things like that, and light is super important to me. It has been since I was young. Like I fell in love with Caravaggio's work when I was younger. The Italian painter, he did the very like very high contrast paintings.
Right? Yeah.
Where they're all kind of like candlelight. You just get one really bright source light, and then everything kind of falls off into darkness. So. Yeah,
that's beautiful because you can sort of appreciate the contours of somebody, right?
Yeah, totally. And light is really, it's one of the first contrasts that we see as humans. Like light and dark, it's the very, very first thing we see when we're evaluating like anything that we walk into when we go into a room. It's that contrast. So light really is kind of like the soul of art, at least for me. Like, I care about design and shape language and things like that, but for me, the lighting is what really gives it like the mood and the soul.
It's funny too because as much work as goes into animation, I always am in favor to have dramatic lighting and to have stuff that sometimes occludes characters and even though it might sting an animator who's put a week of work into having a background character do whatever. You got to think about what's more important, what's making the most visual impact, right?
Well, and that brings me to something that I don't know. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to film is just like thinking about the romance of what you don't see.
Yeah.
It's so important to have a good balance between showing things and not showing things. And that to me is what really makes and breaks a lot of current movies, especially since everything's CG these days. Like it's the whole like not showing the monster. Like you show the monster, somebody's gonna see the zipper. It ruins it, but if you don't show the monster, your brain fills in and it's scarier.
Right.
And you can do that with everything. And, when you're working in animation, you don't have to show all detail all the way back. Like
now, as long as I've known you, you've always been a big avid reader and just talking into the same topic, it's almost as like there's never going to be anything that filmmakers put on screen that's going to outdo somebody's imagination. And I think maybe from your perspective, as someone who does a lot of reading, I feel like that is sort of the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Playing with those contrasts, playing with the contrast of showing something versus not showing it. You can pull at somebody's emotions. Like there's something about seeing a figure walking through the mist. You can't see the detail of who they are. You can't see their facial expression. You don't know what their clothing is, so we're hiding the all this work that we put into the costume design and the rigging for the
just buy the art book
movement and
whatever. Just buy the art book, it's all good.
I mean, if you can get a beautiful moment that's just simply lit and it tells a story, to me that's far more important.
Totally.
So I love, especially with lighting, like I love hiding things and showing things, like I think it's a lot better than showing everything.
Right.
I'm really not a fan of like, the high def thing. You know, like how every movie needs to be in like, you know,
Right.
higher and higher K. It's like,
That's-
what are we up to now? 8K?
No, that's the, that's the blessing and the curse of digital cameras, especially, is that you can actually get the details in the shadow. And back forever ago when it was with film, I mean, you hear David Fincher talk about how he would sometimes butt heads with his cinematographer because he wanted it to be lighter and he wanted it to be darker. But once that thing is shot at the exposure that it's at, that's it. That you get what you get. So I think the trick is, it's almost like with CG animation, with digital cameras, you have to really go out of your way to make it look analog and look and omit, like you said, omit details.
Yeah, which is, it's really weird because it's kind of like the dog wagging the tail. Or the tail wagging the dog. Sorry, that's the right way to say it.
Okay.
I can say that again.
It's like, this is really deep. I don't quite get it yet, but take me there.
Yeah. No, so we can use that in the outtakes. So it's like the tail wagging the dog. You know, it's kind of going backwards. You know, we're trying to recreate something in a computer that we were doing, you know, in real space. And I think that's actually caused a lot of problems. That's something that I notice a lot with concept art. Like people who don't have a traditional background in drawing or painting oftentimes create horrible digital paintings, even though they're amazing with Photoshop, but they've just never been limited before.
Interesting.
And so having access to unlimited colors, unlimited value ranges, they just never learn how to actually paint. They don't know what it is to like mix color. And
this is so fascinating because you're, I believe, the fourth person we've had on here, and every single guy we've had on here talks about how you need to do your homework, you need to eat your vegetables, you need to sort of have these...
Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs, drink your milk.
Actually do drugs.
Actually, some drugs, you know, depends. Anyway, but the point is that parameters and boundaries are super important for budding artists because it teaches you how to be creative. It teaches you to make better choices, and yeah, when you have this, like you said, an unlimited palette, all of a sudden that might actually be a handicap, whether or not you realize it.
Really is, yeah. And it's something that I saw while teaching. You know, there would be a huge difference between students who'd started out analog versus students who started out digitally, and especially just color usage, and it's really, really easy to use photos as a crutch also. I mean, I use photos in my paintings. Everybody does. Like, it'd be dumb not to, because it's kind of a waste of time, you know, especially because the art that I do, it's never on camera. Like, you're never going to see it in the final film. So I may as well just slap in a texture if I need to indicate, like, oh, this is glass or this is wood.
Right.
You know, so I've kind of gotten past that because when I was first starting out, like, way before, or even, I guess, just the early days at Art Center, I was so against digital art.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's cheating.
Oh man, you're old school.
Oh yeah. I was like, I'm going to be a painter.
You're like an old 25-year-old kid. Yeah.
I've always been an old man at art.
Yeah, this is true. You know, I think that's part of the reason we get along all right.
Yeah.
We're like, put the cell phone down. Go fly a kite.
Yeah.
Barg.
But I also think it's because, like, I started out like I wanted to be a fine artist. Basically, I started my career when I was 15. I started airbrushing. And I mean, it was, you know, a 15-year-old's career, where I was basically going to Little League games, and I was airbrushing T-shirts and hats for kids.
That's cool.
And then, you know,
what were you drawing when you were that young? Like,
oh, just like baseballs, or like, you know, or they'd ask me for, like, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog or something, or it'd just be like whatever, you know, it'd be like their name.
I would love to see a Sonic
like
the Hedgehog by you, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You should put that on Twitter, you'd be surprised what'll happen.
Yeah, I'd have to join Twitter first.
Never mind, yeah, don't do that.
But since I started out airbrushing, and then went from there into more like fine art type stuff. You know, I had this thing where I wanted to be like a real artist and use real paint. But
something tactile.
Yeah. But as I was going through school, I realized very quickly, one, that print media is basically dead. So being an illustrator isn't, you know, like a viable career path. That's when I started looking towards entertainment. And entertainment, it's like, oh, obviously you need to start learning digital.
Do you do anything in the battle between digital and analog? Are there techniques you do on Photoshop, or do you import like specialized brushes or textures to sort of make it look less digital?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I've always done is, I mean, back when I started, like, you had to make your own brushes. You know, there were, because the only brushes you had to start with were like the hard round brush, you know, and then the like soft round brush, like the airbrush, and a couple little stampy things here and there. But yeah, I actually used to take actual paint brushes and I would dip them either in paint or like ink, and then I'd do blotches on paper, and then I'd take those blotches and I'd turn them into brushes.
Oh wow. That's
So
cool.
yeah, I went really out of my way, especially in school, to do that. Just because having that layer of texture is always really nice. Like, and since I have a traditional painting background, it just makes more sense to me to paint in that way. Like, I still don't even use that many layers when I paint. Like, that's also probably just because I'm a spaz and I can't remember what layer I'm on. You know? So I like to flatten stuff down as much as I can.
I think that also helps you commit to a decision.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Yeah. And it helps with my creative process too, because instead of like getting bogged down by creating all these layers, I'm just going. You know, I would rather, instead of trying to search for the layer that some tree in the background is on, I'd rather just lasso tool the thing, move it, and then just fill in that space.
Right.
You know, but I'm also, I'm doing concept art, so I'm moving quickly. This isn't like really fine detailed stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you started on Shrek 4, and then what was the last film you were on before you went to Disney?
Well, I went from Shrek 4 to Crudes.
Okay.
And then I went on to a series of other films after that, none of which came out.
Are you
all been
serious?
canned.
Oh, you're talking about Dreamworks Films.
Oh yeah, Dreamworks Films.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So I worked
Me and
on
My Shadow and.
I didn't work on Me and My Shadow, but I worked on Monkeys of Mumbai. These are all, I know they've all been announced. Monkeys of Mumbai, Puss in Boots 2, Crudes 2.
Cool.
What else did I work on? The original version of the Trolls.
Oh, I gotcha.
I worked on that too, which got canned and then turned into the version that Mike Mitchell did, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to see that, but I know earlier today we were just talking about sort of our favorite production experiences, and we were talking about how it's important it is to have, hopefully a director or a leader who has a good head on their shoulder, and I think we both agree that Mike Mitchell was a pretty talented person.
Oh, yeah, he was
because
great.
For me at least, Shrek 4 was the top in terms of the actual production.
Yeah,
he seemed like he had really good feedback with a lot of stuff.
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's actually one of the funniest parts about, I don't know, at least that being our first film was, it was kind of like the best film to work on, but also the worst, because it was so well run. Like, I remember there was only one scene, like in the whole movie there, canned.
Yeah, I remember that scene. It was all the way done to the effects on the lighting stage. Yeah.
But other studios, like, that happens all the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I was shocked. I was like, we only had one scene that got cut. That was from the beginning, like when I started 2 years earlier, because I worked on the film all the way from.
Did you actually do pre-viz for that for that scene that they canned, or?
Actually, no, I didn't do any.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I did some lighting stuff for that scene, but yeah, none of the. I think they still might have used the lighting for that scene, because I think there's still like, he went into like this barn or something in
all the things attacked him.
Yeah,
right?
and I think instead he just like walks outside. And then it cuts to like the next scene, and they skipped like the whole barn scene. So I think they still used like one of my lighting paintings, but
they gotta stick that on a DVD somewhere, or not a DVD, but some sort of
like a
feature somewhere. By the way, they actually released the Chris Farley recordings over Shrek.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
that's crazy.
I'm biased because I'm a huge Chris Farley fan, but I really like the way. No, the guy's great, but. Yeah, he had this vulnerability to his voice that I thought was really nice.
Oh, that's cool.
I've seen that's on YouTube now.
Yeah, I never heard the recording though.
Yeah.
Have you seen the art, like the old Chris Farley art?
Yeah,
because they were trying to make Shrek actually look like him, and yeah, it's funny.
That previous stuff is always really interesting. You always kind of wish that that the final product comes out a little bit closer to that, right?
Yeah, that is kind of one of the bummers about concept art or like visual development art is. Well, one, most of it gets thrown away.
Right.
Because I like to look at it, my job is to provide ideas. It's not, and it's also kind of like a salesman.
Right.
You're trying to sell the movie to the executives, basically, by creating this art, and then you're trying to also provide art that will inform the pipeline down the road.
Right.
But a big part of it really is it's just kind of like, getting somebody to actually buy into the movie,
right?
And pay for it.
It's a lot of abortions, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So it can be difficult. I mean, you have to develop thick skin,
Sure.
But that's why I say, like, working with Mike Mitchell, it might have been like the best or worst movie, because I don't know, it sets you up for like really high expectations, and then after that, it's when you're going through chaos of other films, you're like, oh my god,
it's not all this way.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm used to it now that I know that film was like impossibly smooth and easygoing. And
I wonder why that is. I mean, obviously the director plays a big part of it too, but it's also like, I guess, the right production people, being in that situation.
It was a good combination of people, and also I think the studio, just since it was the
fourth Shrek at this point.
The studio isn't paying attention as much. Artists are able to just do their job without having to do so much of the song and pony
song
show.
And dance, right.
Because that is a big part of it. Like I said, is selling the movie to the executives.
Right. Because they're the ones putting all the money in.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I had a friend who worked, she wasn't an executive, but she worked amongst them, and she said she had never been around such anxious people, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so as much as I guess creatives like to sort of, there's always that headbutting that happens between creatives and executives, like it's got to be a hard job at the same time.
Oh, totally.
But
yeah. Well, especially now that I'm like, in management, I'm interacting with the executives a lot more, and I am looking at budgets. Like, Riot's interesting because the way that they do management there, like, not only am I in charge of the artists on my team, like I would be, at a normal animation studio, as a production designer, I'm also in charge of like their pay and like I'm kind of the hiring manager, part producer. Luckily, we have a really good producer on our team right now, so she helps out.
That's cool.
A ton. But yeah, it's a little nuts because I'm like reading contracts and like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, what led you to Riot? Because you did 2 animation studios, and then now doing gaming stuff.
Yeah.
So what was that jump?
Yeah. For me, it's I love doing new stuff.
Yeah.
I love trying new things. Like, and I don't have a house. Like, I don't have kids. I do have family in the area, but I don't have anything tying me down. So I'm like, if something cool comes up, I want to be able to move over and do it.
I gotcha. Yeah.
Disney's lineup was kind of slow. Like, there wasn't much to work on at the time. So I was like, you know what? I worked on Moana. I'm really proud of that movie. It's great. I got the Disney experience. I'm gonna go try out this other place where I get to draw swords and dragons and shit.
That's kind of what Joe told me.
Yeah. I love making movies for kids.
Yeah.
I always thought I'd have a family, and that's just, I don't know. Our industry is not easy to do that, just because you have to give your life to the company. Give your life to the film, basically. But so yeah, I don't know. I'm at a point where I'm like, I kind of want to make movies that I want to watch.
Sure.
Not that I don't want to make kids movies anymore.
Right,
I'll definitely do it. I mean, I still like my nieces. I love taking them to see stuff.
That seems like a natural progression, though, for a lot of artists, where you after a while, tastes evolve, and sort of you start to ask yourself, what do I want to be spending the rest of my life doing?
Oh, totally.
And because Joe said a very similar thing, where he said, I've been doing family entertainment for 10 years, and I just feel like I'd like to try something that's a little more interesting, I guess, for a man in his 30s at that point.
Oh, totally.
So,
I'm the exact same boat,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fun, and it's a new adventure. Like, I meet new people, just more connections. Like, I don't know, this stuff I've been working on is super fun. It's totally different than what I normally do, but it's still kind of the same because it's still concept art and animation. But.
It seems that I feel like that the one genre, or maybe not genres, maybe that's not the right word, but the one feat that has yet to be done or executed well is the feature-length adult animation, where it has the production values of, say, a place like Riot or Pixar or what have you, but it's done with an adult tone. Not an adult where like the characters are
boning or something,
fucking each other, but I'm saying like where there's some grit to it and some violence or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just feel that
I can't talk too much about what we're doing, but that's definitely part of what attracted me to the company.
Cool.
And it's something we're still fighting too, because I think that's just an American stigma for the most part. Because you look at Japanese anime, like you look.
It's very commonplace.
Oh yeah. I mean, they got the hardest hardcore porn, in animated forms. They have the most violent stuff you can ever see in animated forms. Like they're doing R-rated stuff. It's just Americans. I think as our generation, our parents start to, die off, and the younger generations come through. Like we all watch cartoons.
Right.
Like most people I know our age and younger watch cartoons.
Right.
Like
so you're saying that there's
normal.
less of a stigma that it's for kids.
Yeah.
I feel like the minute that somebody does that adult, R-rated feature, I almost feel like Deadpool, for instance, when I came around and it showed people that you can still make money.
Oh,
you can still
do an R-rated,
you can make an R-rated movie. And there's going to be an audience for you as long as the story's done right.
Yeah.
As long as it's entertaining and just execution is done correctly.
Yeah.
It's not as though there's not going to be a lack of audience, because if anything, like you're saying, we all grew up with less of that stigma, so we're ready for something like that.
Oh yeah, and we love it. I mean, we flock to it. That's why the comic book movies are flourishing right now.
Right.
And I don't know, the companies really need to take advantage of that. But I don't know, at the same time, to me, the things that actually are more exciting is what technology is giving, or the access that technology is giving us as individuals right now. To me, that's the most exciting thing. Like being able to have like a YouTube channel.
Oh, right.
Stuff like that. It's so revolutionary. Like the fact that
access to information.
Yeah, like this morning,
learning.
I'm watching like Kevin Hart on YouTube.
Sure.
He's got this dumb, funny video series where he works out, and today they were like drinking beer while doing yoga.
All right.
But I can also I have like 3 YouTube channels that I just threw up there as random Joe Schmo. I mean, I'm not trying to like associate it with my career or anything. But
the options are pretty
do that
amazing.
Too. Yeah, and I see it only becoming more accessible. And I know a lot of people are afraid about technology taking over jobs, and it is a thing happening in animation right now. I really worry for anybody who's like in school for production right now.
I got you.
Like if you're going to be a lighter or surfacer or something, you're
talking about outsourcing to other
because outsourcing's everything. Yeah, I mean, like if you look at the studios today, what we have in LA, we have Disney, and then we have Illumination, we have DreamWorks, but those are like 3 big ones. But we also have Warner Brothers and Sony, but they're, they don't always release as regularly. Yeah. So I don't know. I think people, we need to start looking towards like our own ways to get our creativity out there instead of like just relying on these companies.
Sure. I think that's the beauty of. I think YouTube maybe is the first attempt at that, and hopefully won't be the only attempt at that, where it's a platform where people who are creative can hopefully find a way to sustain themselves. Totally. And it's not a good model right now.
No, I know.
But it's I feel like it's only just the beginning.
Yeah.
So optimistically speaking, someone's going to come around and say, okay, we have a place now for people who are maybe more, I don't know how to say it. Maybe they're more intricate or more craftsman-like with their work versus sort of just, shitting out content left and right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's sort of the birth pains of this new, where everybody has a channel, everybody has a platform.
Oh, totally.
Everybody has a megaphone, whatever.
The internet has changed things so much, and even though there are technologies that are going to start taking away some of the more, like lower production jobs, like the production jobs are basically disappearing. If you guys don't know that, then
right. No, it's good to know.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty obvious. If you don't know it, then I don't know. I'm really hoping that we're gonna get some good technology within like the next 10, 20 years that, like individuals can actually make like feature quality type work. And I don't know. That's just kind of my hippie dream.
No, but it's true. But I feel that I mean. with the advent of digital film, as much as we were just talking about how it's dangerous in terms of giving a young person too much freedom, at the same time, though, you are going to have those guys who can sort of practice that sort of restraint and make good stuff, and
totally.
and
there's
that is
tons of good content.
There's a ton of stuff happening like that right now, but yeah, it's definitely it would be nice if there was maybe a better home for them, I guess.
Totally.
So,
Yeah. There's a lot I can say about YouTube's policies right now. And all the what's the joke? Demonetize.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I do that on my channel because like I just play video games with my girlfriend on my channel.
I didn't know you did all that.
Oh yeah, we've
That's
been
hilarious.
live streaming Dark Souls.
That's great. Oh my god. Of course you would love Dark Souls.
Yeah.
That whole thing is just like a moving painting, isn't it?
Well, it's not really that pretty. It's more just hard and.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I've only played maybe like an hour of it, but
Really?
I remember thinking like, the designs and
I mean,
and the
there are
mood.
some really nice designs. If I start getting technical, I'm like, I don't really like the way they do the lighting and stuff.
Oh really? Okay.
But yeah, I don't know.
Well, going back to I guess that whole realm. I remember you were on campus when Roger Deakins showed up, right?
Yeah.
And that for you that must have been pretty exciting, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it was really exciting. It was kind of interesting times too on the project. I was on Crudes at the time, and they were bringing him in, and it was interesting because that was right when Avatar came out.
Yeah.
So suddenly, Avatar becomes like the benchmark. This is what everybody has to nail. So then DreamWorks starts bringing in people from live action, and Roger Deakins is one of them, and he's, I can easily say he's my favorite cinematographer.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I mean, I love his stuff, and I love that I got to work with him because he gave me a ton of reference.
Oh, cool! Wow.
It's
that definitely did change, like you were saying, the makeup of the campus, because I remember
it really did,
that Pete Docter came by and gave a talk, and I was very excited because he's probably next to Brad Bird, my favorite Pixar director.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I showed up
one of the good ones.
on time. I didn't want to get a bad seat, but I noticed that the seating was about 2/3 full, and I thought, that's interesting. This is Pete Docter. I think he's a genius, right? It was so casual that I had a chance to go up and talk to him afterwards.
That's awesome.
And nicest guy, most humble guy as you can imagine. But then we had, and granted, this is James Cameron, so anybody and their grandma knows who he is. But that was like,
that.
I didn't even try to go to that because the over, what do they call it, like the overspill?
The overflow.
Was completely full.
Oh yeah. The entire campus, it was just outside mostly.
Yeah. But Deakins though, I remember that was the first time that, because that was maybe coming off of Shrek 4, seeing that there was actual black, like, hexadecimal 0000, like the blackest blacks on the screen.
Oh yeah.
Versus because there was this sort of tendency in feature animation to have everything very easily lit and seen.
Well,
right?
and the reason for that goes back to the old 2D Disney days. The reason why they want to do that is it actually helps the audience feel like they're looking into like a three-dimensional plane. So it's sort of an artifact of the old 2D days where you had to prove that this was a three-dimensional image even though it's not.
Oh, interesting.
So that's why, like, when I was taught, like, to do, because I basically had, like, layout training, kind of like the old school way, like, where you do, like, pencil drawings first, you do all your thumbnails, and you do your tonals, and then you would do, like, your color study, and then you would do the full, like, color painting, like, that's the traditional way, like, that they would have done backgrounds back in the day, on 2D films, how they still do in a lot of places, like Japan.
Yeah.
Although I think they skip the tonal part because they're cranking away, they don't have time.
Right.
So I think because of having Roger Deakins come in, like, the studio started feeling more comfortable about, just getting rid of some of those things that were grandfathered in from the 2D days. Because it's all about layering. Back in the 2D days, they would always try and put, like, the darkest thing in the foreground. So you always have, like, a bush or something. So you always feel like you're peeking through something. It's
like a vignette.
It's about creating, like, a voyeuristic kind of experience where you feel like you can walk into the movie scene, like the picture scene. And that's super important if you're doing 2D. But once you're doing 3D, it kind of stops being as important because people are just going to believe it's a three-dimensional space.
Right.
So I don't know, a lot of people still fight that. Like, I'm working with people currently who won't let the blacks go all the way black.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know, I don't get that granular with stuff like that because I'm more about like the big picture.
Right.
You know, I don't have very many opinions on film grain. I just like it to be there.
Sure. Yeah. However it works. Yeah.
Yeah. The details is where I start to like get bored and snooze off a bit.
Right.
But
yeah. No, I'm there with you. Like at this point, it's the broad strokes are definitely interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's people out there who are complete badasses when it comes to, you know, that perfect polish with animation and this and that, and like there's a reason that those guys stand out compared to so many other people.
Oh,
but
totally.
yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, you're doing more. It sounds like more managing, more even paperwork.
Yeah, which was a little unexpected when I took the gig, but I also went there for an adventure, you know, and I love to learn. I'm a voracious reader, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
I devour books and audiobooks, and
like
I pretty much listen to like either histories of different countries or, you know, like science podcasts or audiobooks, things like that while I'm working. So I'm getting like 8 hours of education every day while I'm painting, you know? Or at least when I have time to paint, you know.
No, I remember we, not that we would go to book club or anything, but I remember that.
We were trading books around.
Well,
right? Like Chuck Palahniuk and Cormac McCarthy.
We talk about that stuff, but I remember I was going to mention how, in terms of you know, having a diverse set of activities or whatever, we would. I remember once we went on that hike, and we found that waterfall.
Oh, we did martial arts on top of it. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was such a like the 15-year-old boys and us being like, wouldn't it be so romantic? Like, well, not romantic in the erotic sense, but
yeah, like,
you know,
the romantic idea.
Yeah,
of like,
let's go. Let's go out to nature. Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll go up on top of a waterfall. Strip down. And then just
we did that.
Well, just do some martial arts up there, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But it's surprising how many people in the industry are pretty. You know, they don't. I think it's important to go out of your way and do different activities because I think that also informs your work a lot.
It does incredibly.
It's important to encourage that, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and that's why I brought it up. I'm not trying to brag about
right.
No.
Learning. Yeah.
It's really.
It's actually kind of goofy if you think about it. Like know, like two guys out there pretending they're Bruce Lee or whatever.
Yeah. But also the whole education and having hobbies and stuff, like it totally informs your work as an artist, and I think it's super important. And that's why I brought up the education, because every single time that I do a piece of concept art, I'm pretty much doing something I've never done before. It's always brand new, like no matter what, you know, like when I worked on the Croods, I'd never thought of like drawing a giant like saber-toothed bunny.
Right.
Like the thought never crossed my mind. And that's why I love working, you know, like in studios on film projects, because you just get to have creative opportunities that you yourself
wouldn't
might
even
never
see
come
coming
up
a
with.
mile away.
Yeah. And then the education part that's important with that is, I don't know, just being interested in various things in the world, you have much more to bring to it. Like I've always been very interested in martial arts, like you said, and you should see the stuff I'm doing now because it's even more ridiculous. Like
really?
I'm doing like historical like longsword and saber fighting.
Oh my god, dude.
With like heavy fencing gear on and like people break fingers.
Oh my god. Okay. Like Kempo style stuff? Or?
It's a little bit like Kempo, but we use real steel swords.
Oh my lord.
They're dull, but
there's a clip for everything in LA, dude.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do out here, there's going to be a place for you.
Yeah, and there's competitions. It's pretty big in Europe.
Okay.
Called HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts.
Oh,
but
that's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, but stuff like that, it's great to have. Like, I have that hobby. Like, I've started I have a bonsai tree that I'm cultivating. I don't know what I'm doing with it, but I'm also raising ants. Like, I built an ant farm for my niece, and then I have another one. And
wow.
I don't know. I love learning about everything I can.
I noticed that you in particular have always had an appreciation for a lot of Eastern culture. Like you have the beads around your arm.
Yeah, these go way back to...
Yeah, I remember you've always had those. Didn't you have them dangling before?
Yeah. They used to be on my keychain, but yeah. Well, one, they always got stuck on stuff.
And everybody would always make the same joke, right? That they were anal beads. Yeah.
Or I'd have Catholics coming up to me being like, "Oh, you have your rosary," and they'd be like, and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm not." Yeah. I mean, I'm not religious or spiritual, but I love philosophy.
Yeah.
And ethical philosophy was something I studied a lot when I was younger, which is kind of what got me into like Eastern philosophy. And then also I studied 4 different Southeast Asian martial arts, which, kind of forces you to learn more about, that stuff. So.
Do you feel like you've been able to channel things that you've gotten out of that? Maybe the discipline, the focus.
Oh yeah. Back into your work. The discipline definitely, because when I was younger, I had a really hard time, like with the white page. And any artist, like, you guys
it's daunting.
You guys know what the white page is like. It's the scariest thing in the world, like white walls.
Screenwriters, the same thing, a blank page,
And there's strategies for that I could talk about, but it's kind of the same thing, is martial arts definitely. And I wasn't doing it as a child. I was doing it as like late teens, and I competed. I fought Muay Thai. And I'm not an aggressive or violent person. It's not in my nature. I did one tournament, and then I was like, all right, I proved to myself that I could fight somebody.
Yeah, you told me about that. You took out a guy, and you were like, oh my God, I didn't know I had it in me. Yeah. Well, I'm good now.
Yeah. Well, I just don't have the killer instinct. I would be like hitting him, and then be like, oh, I think I should back off because he looks hurt.
Oh my God, is that blood? I did that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, Sure. Well, he popped me one in the mouth, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to hit him.
That was self-defense.
At
that point. But, you're good. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
But no, martial arts taught me extreme discipline, and I've always been pretty disciplined. That's just part of my nature. But when I was in school, like I took it really far. Like Art Center, like I'm surprised I survived it, to be honest, because I mean I was basically like I turned myself into like an art monk in a way. Like I had shaved my head completely. Like I was sleeping on the floor.
Well, I know you used
in a garage.
Even at Dreamworks, you used to sleep on a yoga mat, right? At home.
I did that for like 6 years.
You're
basically.
Crazy. Dude.
Well, I've had these. Well, I don't know. I just because I've studied so many different things that I was going through a phase where I was trying to like make myself stronger by like tearing down the unnecessary components of my life, like
the frivolous bits.
So like my hair I was shaving because I don't know, I've always been proud of my hair, like, so I was like, oh, this is a sign of pride, I should like erase it.
Interesting.
And it was more of a philosophical thing, and it's actually funny because I ended up growing out my hair long, which I don't know if you ever met me when it was like down to my shoulders.
No, that sounds amazing.
Oh yeah. So I went from, and it's really funny, one of my classmates was like, when we were in our junior year or something, or like maybe senior at the end, he was like, it's so funny, you went from Buddha to Jesus. Because I went from being like shaved, like everything, like no hair, to having like a long beard like I have now, probably even longer. I think it was like more down to here, and then hair down to my shoulders. And that was because I had a friend who had really long hair at school, and one day he came in and he had cut off his ponytail, and I was like, oh, whoa, what happened? Like, new haircut. And he's like, oh, well, I grow my hair out to a certain length, and then I cut it and I donate it.
Right.
And he's like, I do this every time. It's just, I was like, I have nice hair and I can grow it. I may as well do something with it.
Wow.
And so then I was like, oh, I'm wasting my hair growing abilities.
Hair growing abilities. You're like a Pokemon. Like you got special power. It's funny because I feel like you found this like happy middle place now at this point in your life.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Now there's just no hair here. And all the hair is down here and up here for now.
Below.
Hopefully some of it stays here.
Sure. Yeah. But plenty from here on down. All the way to your toes.
At least until the summer hits.
Sure. Man, how do we get into hair? How do we rope this back into your work? So it's interesting because by cutting out frivolous vanities and whatever. Do you feel you use that same thought process when you're exploring a painting or a design and you think, oh, this is now a little too much. I'm gonna whittle it down.
That's actually pretty interesting because I do really like simplicity when it comes to aesthetics. Like I'm really drawn to Danish modern design, like furniture, and then like Japanese furniture, and just like
right angles and
yeah,
simple.
just really simple stuff. So I'd never thought about that actually, but it may have been an influence in there. But for me, I think it was mainly just, getting that discipline and working really hard. And this thing that actually sparked that was I had a teacher, Kyle Kane, huge impact on my life, especially at Art Center, because I can't remember, it was probably third week or something. And he was a total hard ass. He was also an ex-martial arts guy. He was a championship karate, I don't know what form he did or whatever, but so we had a lot of similarities. And I remember 3 weeks in, he told us to look around the room. And Art Center has small classes, 16 to 20 students. And I think this was, within that range. And he told us to look around, and he's like, only 2 of you guys are getting jobs. Make sure you're one of those 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was kind of that moment where I'm especially, I was already very committed because I didn't have any financial support. I was working full time, going to College of the Canyons, which is a local community college out here. Just trying to make enough money, and then finally just bit the bullet and got a ton of student loans before I went to Art Center. And so, I was already really, really invested, but that really kicked my butt. And because he was one of those teachers where he's I don't give out A's. I've only given out 2 A's or something in my entire career. Yeah. And there's lots of people at Art Center like that, or at least there used to be. Everybody says it changed, but everybody says it changed every time.
Sure. Used to be better.
Yeah. And I actually haven't had much interaction with Art Center in a long time, so I don't know what it's like now.
Do they call asking for money?
Oh,
yeah. That's awkward, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I finally paid off my student loans, so if you guys want to call me,
hey.
No, please don't do that. I want to buy a house eventually.
Yeah.
But no. What were we talking about?
So you had a very hard ass teacher who.
Oh yeah. But in a good way. Yeah. He was a hard ass in the fact that, and I had a lot of hard ass teachers. I had another one named Niles for typography, which was a class that I took as well, in which we had to actually recreate fonts by hand. Wow. And then resize them and then do different bold, italic, And I remember the first day of class, or not the first day, it was the second day of class, we bring in our first homework assignment, and he has very specific rules. You have to have them on specific paper, done with a specific pencil, pinned up on the board in a specific way. He walks into the room, everybody's waiting, we've got our work pinned up, and he just walks over to the trash can, slides it underneath the first one.
Props, by the way.
Yeah.
On Shot Talk. We're having Carrot Top next week, actually.
Yeah. He drags a trash can underneath the first piece and just stares at it, rips it off, puts it in the trash can, goes down the line. Only 2 people stayed up that day.
Wow.
I wasn't one of them.
Oh,
do you know why? He said mine was perfect. I bought the wrong size pencil. My pencil was a 1/4 inch, because it was a chisel pencil. It was a 1/4 inch smaller. So all my letters were great, but they were just the wrong width. And so they got thrown away and I had to redo it.
Jeez Louise.
And we had to do the whole alphabet. And
you just saw it just ripped from the
yeah.
Oh my God. See, I had a similar drawing teacher. Yeah. Nowhere near on that level, but he.
Oh, this is the only time he did that.
Okay.
But I think it was kind of like a kick in the pants sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I got A's in both of those classes, and they were both teachers where they're they've only given out 5 A's in their whole career or something. Yeah. And I was I'm gonna I don't know. I'm just that person. If you give me a challenge, I'll do it. And I'll destroy myself to do it.
Absolutely.
That's why I was sleeping on the floor. I was doing that basically because I didn't have enough room for a bed and an easel. Right. And I was well, obviously art is more important. So I was I'll just roll up my bed. I'll live Japanese style.
Right.
I just roll my bed up and then
sleep on a rock. Yeah. No, I think a lot of us who have excelled, and I don't know if it's oftentimes in the STEM field, STEM industries, or in with art, obviously. It's a matter of logging in enough hours.
Oh, totally.
And I had, I was saying, I had a similar experience like that with a teacher. He'd make us put up our drawings on the wall, and he instilled in me the fear, the fear of the art god, where I realized that I had to really focus and make it sort of my life for a while.
Oh yeah, you do.
So yeah, that it sort of consumes you. It's almost like when
really
you're a kid and you do that with a video game and you think,
oh yeah,
I want to beat this.
You close your eyes and you see it.
Yeah,
right?
It's almost like
Dude, I have dreams about Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Like
you close your eyes and see the Tetris blocks falling.
Oh, seriously?
Or whatever,
yeah.
so.
I used to do that in Mario. Like you'd close your eyes and you'd see like little Mario jumping around. Or
I remember when 64 came out. It was those red stairs I would see as I was going to bed. It was terrible.
Mario 64.
But but it's a thing where that guys. Or people in general, whoever wants to do this, it becomes an obsession, and because it has to be an obsession because that's what makes you stand out and give you the talent level that studios and top elite places are looking for, just so you're good enough to get into that those spots.
And that's the crazy part, and that's something everybody has to kind of remember. You have to love it. This is something we were talking about before the podcast. It's because animation is such hard work, and your life is, you basically give your life to the company that you're working for. The hours that you work, like it has to be something you care passionately about. Like it has to be something you get angry about. Like seriously, I hate people. Not really. Like I have to like pull back just because of like artistic style differences.
Oh wow, yeah.
You know, like you have to be that level of interested in it because animation is so hard. And it takes up so much
I know what
of
you
your
mean.
life.
It's not that you hate the person, but you have such strong convictions about the way it should be done.
Like you'll yell in their face about something that later you're like, why am I getting mad about what color a dinosaur should be, or something, you know?
Right.
But it's that level of passion.
Hey, this is Shrek 4. Hey.
You know, and it not only to break into the industry, but then to survive in it. Like you just have to be super passionate.
Sure.
It has to be kind of like everything, you know, and for me, art is everything. Like even sitting here talking to you, and I'm not doing this intentionally because I need to stay within the shot because I know how cameras work, but I generally move into a position in which I have a better composition.
Oh, interesting.
For where I'm looking.
Right.
It's so ingrained into me. Like I'm thinking about what colors to mix, like to get the highlight that's hitting your cheek because you have cool light.
Rearranging my hair right now? Yeah.
A little.
Could be better, right?
Yeah, a little messier. I like it better that way. Sex hair, you know.
But you know, we'll have time after this.
Yeah.
You know, whatever.
But you know, I can't help but do that. I'm always like painting in my head or composing in my head. You know, like oftentimes I see like a tree and I'm like, oh, whoa, what if I turn that tree into like a monster or something?
Oh, cool,
or like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's always just like that creative process is just constantly turning and. You know, and I think that's why it's important, and this is something I'm horrible at, that like advice I have to give to myself is keeping a sketchbook.
Oh, sure.
You know, just for all those random ideas. And actually that's something I love about being a production designer right now is that since I'm doing a lot of meetings, I don't have time to draw and spend a lot of time on it. So I do a lot of my doodles in meetings, like on 3x5 cards or Post-it notes or something.
Drawing executives or drawing like...
No, I'm actually drawing stuff for what I'm working on.
Oh, okay.
But because we'll be talking, you know, and I'll be talking to the writer, you know, and the director, and we'll just be spitballing stuff, and then I'll sketch something and show it to them, and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, and we'll be like, oh yeah, let's get so-and-so to paint that, and like, you know, it's great because I get to do still a lot of the fun, creative stuff, and I forgot how that goes back into you know, just being
I mean, I think you're talking about how it's such a facet of your life. It's not just a day job.
It has to be who you are.
You're going home with it, and you're constantly it's constantly in your mind. You're constantly working out visual problems in your head.
Oh yeah, and you have to be educating yourself constantly as well. That's one thing that's really hard to do, just with how much time you spend working. Luckily, doing the job itself actually does make you better because it's art.
Right,
you know?
right.
And that's kind of one of the things that I love because even if I hate what I'm working on, I'm technically getting better at art, hopefully.
Sure,
you know?
Sure, yeah.
So that's one of the pluses. It's like, oh, I'm getting paid and I'm getting better at something I love, which will hopefully get me more money doing this thing that I love.
Exactly, yeah. Finding fulfillment in that.
Yeah. So it actually is like a good positive feedback loop. But I mean, for me personally, and you know, this is getting into some like very personal territory, I've had 2 arm surgeries in the past 5 years.
Oh wow.
Because I've just blown out my joints. because I worked that much and that hard, and
Yeah.
and if you're doing tons of overtime, like it's like any job, like that's one of the things people don't talk about a lot with animation is pretty much everybody I know has like back, neck problems, carpal tunnel, like something. There's always something wrong with somebody. Like nobody that I know doesn't have some sort of like workplace thing.
Sure.
And
if it's not a physical ailment, it's a really weird personality quirk. Because there's a lot of those in the industry.
Oh, that's for sure too. Yeah. So I don't know. That's why I say it's like you definitely got to commit your life to it. It's kind of like being a professional athlete. Like it's got to be your passion. You don't become Shaquille O'Neal just because you're tall.
Right.
You become Shaquille O'Neal because you're tall and you're good at basketball and you play every day, all day. And it's kind of the same with art. Like, even when I'm not painting or drawing, I'm doing other stuff. I'm like sculpting, like I make costumes and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. I'm constantly making things.
I was gonna say, when that is something about that community, the industry that I didn't realize was such a thing, because I remember. Obviously, I'm a big Batman fan. And once I actually had a job and money, disposable money, I started making a Batman Returns replica suit.
Yeah, I remember when you were starting out.
Dude,
and I love it.
And I remember that there was a lot of people.
Cowls and stuff.
Yeah. I found the guy with one of the original molds from the movie, which is completely unlicensed, and he was just selling it on like the Brotherhood of the Bat internet forum.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that place.
It was very. You really had to gain their trust before they let you in and start.
Let you into the Brotherhood.
Yeah, the Brotherhood of the Bat, but
you made it in.
I did. Nice. I got my cowl, and but that is something that I've noticed across the board is that like guys like you and in Halloween parties and stuff at Dreamworks that people really go all out with this sort of costume making or just craftsmanship.
It's so fun, right? Yeah. Well, for me, it's like when I go home, actually I work at home a lot these days. One of the nice things about working with a lot of freelance artists is they all live in different countries, so there's no point in me being physically at work. So, I can work at home a lot. So the thing that I like to do is when I go home, when I'm not behind a screen anymore, is I want to do something practical. Like I want to use my hands. Like I actually want to get paint underneath my fingernails. I want to accidentally cut myself with a razor blade.
Sure. Accidentally.
Yeah.
For the art.
Yeah. You have to bleed for the art. Funny enough, I have paintings that have blood on them. Well, there was one that I was doing when I was in. This was right before Art Center. I was getting ready for my portfolio, and I was painting on clay at that time. Acrylic on clay, and I was doing some scratch stuff too to add texture and things. And I remember I was doing scratch wipe, and one time I forgot to lift up the blade, and I literally just went thunk. And it was 2 weeks before I was supposed to fight in my Muay Thai tournament, and I just put super glue in it, because if I had stitches they wouldn't let me fight.
Did you just grab that from your desk? just willy-nilly on the spot?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I super glued my finger back together just a few weeks ago at Ren Fair.
What were you doing at Ren Fair? Did that cause you to lose a finger?
Well, I was screwing around. I bought this fake, a treasure chest, one of the vendors was selling.
Okay.
And one of my buddies, because I was dressed as a Viking, and so he was dressed as more like a farm boy type. And so I was running away with the treasure chest, and he was chasing me.
Oh, that's funny.
And then I don't know, we were just too drunk and stuff, and I tripped and fell over, and the metal on the thing just cut me open.
Gashed you open.
Yeah, but luckily I had super glue on me because
You're just used to it at this point.
Well, because my costumes could fall apart while we're there, and actually, because I made this really elaborate bird skull helmet for my girlfriend, and it had real antlers attached to it.
Nice.
And I had they were both glued on, but then I also had wooden dowels running through, because I used Warblow, which is a thermoplastic, to actually shape the skull itself. And then the antlers were real, and then I had like real teeth that I added to it too. It's not a real bird, obviously, if it has antlers and teeth.
Right.
Kind of inspired by terror birds. Also something nerdy, ancient birds that lived after the dinosaurs, giant, 12 feet tall, 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had the super glue for that because one of those dowels ended up breaking, and so I had to like reattach it. But yeah, it came in handy later on because apparently they don't have Band-Aids at Renaissance Fair.
You think they would for as many drunk people and sharp objects at a Ren Fair?
Seriously, yeah.
That's funny, yeah.
And I was standing there, and they're like, "Oh, we can get the paramedics," and I'm like, "Oh, it's just a small cut." And I was like, "I have super glue." I'm like, "I'm good." And they're like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I just walked out.
This has happened before.
Oh yeah. As long as I don't have to pull out the duct tape, I'm good.
I'm an artist. Don't you worry.
Yeah. No, most of my wounds are if I put anything on them, it's duct tape and super glue. I don't have Band-Aids at my house. There's no Kleenex and
disinfectant.
Yeah. Well, like Edna Mode, you know how in The Incredibles, she gives Mrs. Incredible a roll of toilet paper.
Oh yeah.
Because Edna Mode, she's too badass. She doesn't cry. There's no crying in Edna Mode's house. Like I don't have Band-Aids. I don't have tissues.
Speaking of which, very excited about that movie coming out
the
next month.
Yeah,
I believe, or this month. It's June already.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, time's flying.
It might be out by the time we're actually putting this on the internet.
Oh wow,
but,
yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, Incredibles. It's tricky for me, so I don't know if I can say if it's Pixar's best film, but it's my favorite Pixar film.
I feel the same way too.
Yeah, I think Monsters Inc. is their best movie.
Yeah.
But I flop between Finding Nemo and Monsters Inc.
Have we had this discussion before?
We probably have. Yeah.
That's so funny because for the same reason that I like, I just mentioned him earlier, the guy who was on Monsters. Pete Docter.
Oh, Pete Docter.
That's why I say that Brad Bird and Pete Docter are my favorites because both of those movies are, in my opinion, the top Pixar films.
Oh yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. For me, I think it has to be Monsters Inc. is like Pixar's best.
Yeah.
For me, just because the way they ended it. With Sully opening the door and you just hear Boo go, "Kitty."
That was a nice touch. Yeah.
That was perfect.
Did your throat get tight?
Oh, dude, all the feels. The feels.
So generally, I'm always curious if there's a movie or film that you ran into when you were young that sort of made you think, oh, that's kind of neat. I want to be a part of that scene.
Yeah, there actually is. So for me, it was The Lion King.
Oh, okay.
That's the first movie that I can remember that made me feel something.
Yeah.
That I really loved. And I'd loved and obsessed over films prior to that. Like, I mean, I was a huge dinosaur nerd, so I loved, Littlefoot from, Land Before Time and all that. There's tons of pictures of me and my sister wearing the pajamas. My sister's name's Sarah, too, so it's perfect.
Oh, that's great.
So
Triceratops, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sarah, Ceratops, yeah. But that movie was the very first one that I ever saw that, like, really touched me and made me feel something. And I think it was also kind of like my age. I was about 10, I think, when that came out.
Yeah.
And I remember actually getting in trouble because I made my grandparents take me go to see it twice.
Oh,
and my parents were like, "It's a waste of their money," and my grandparents like, "Oh, we don't care." And
this kid's gonna go work in animation. You gotta let him do it.
Yeah. But that's okay. So the ironic thing is, I grew up next to Cal Arts. I grew up out in Valencia, so I grew up with disgruntled animators, and every single one of them told me, like, growing up, don't go into animation, don't go into animation. And
but for you, it's interesting because those films hit you on an emotional level, so that it seems like that preceded then your interest in the visuals, right? Or were they both, or did you even think of it that way?
I think they were fairly separate. It's actually really funny because I didn't even realize visual development or concept art was a job till my junior year in college.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I had no clue.
I was the same way with character animation. I didn't understand that there was a technique that was really like almost like that. There's like this whole lexicon of stuff and like textbooks on it. I had no idea that existed.
Yeah. But I got really lucky. I had Mike Humphreys and Will Weston as teachers over at Arts Center. And Mike Humphreys had worked at Disney for a long time. He did a beautiful short called The Matchbox Girl or Matchstick Girl.
Okay,
like that.
I think I've seen this.
It's on one of their bonus DVDs. You can tell why it didn't come out in front of a feature because it's pretty sad.
It's pretty heavy, yeah.
Yeah, it's heavy, but gorgeous stuff. And luckily I just happened to have a class with them. And then when they told me what the job was, I was just like, holy shit, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, man.
You know, because I've always loved world building, like creating stuff. Like when I was a kid, I used to run around in the desert behind my house because there was nothing behind my parents' yard for 60 miles. It was just dirt and tarantulas and rattlesnakes and all this stuff I would catch and bring home, minus the rattlesnakes. But
Sure.
and lots of dirt though. So I'd run around up there and like I'd make like fake swords out of like, you know, I found like the sliding door, like the metal from that.
Okay.
I'd take that and I like bang out like a handle and wrap electrical tape around it that I found in the garage, and then I'd make maps of like, you know, the trails that we'd go on, and I'd name all the different places, and I'd draw like like the encounters we'd have. Like,
that's fun.
Because there was one place I called like Dragon's Peak, so you know I'd draw like,
that's cool.
You know what the dragons looked like up there, and so I was already kind of doing it when I was younger. I used to do the same thing when.
So you were in love with the space and the exploration and sort of the unknown, right? That was always very romantic, I guess.
Oh, totally.
To you.
Yeah. Like I even made up my own like Tolkien-esque. Like I totally ripped off Tolkien. But I made up my own language, you know, written language, but it corresponded perfectly with English. So I've always kind of been doing it in a way, and also with Halloween, like when I was a kid, my friends and I, when we were teenagers, we used to make haunted houses. So we'd make, you know, costumes and props for that too. And,
that's awesome. Yeah, because then your job description very much is create this environment, this world that doesn't exist, but you're allowed to let your imagination kind of run wild.
Yeah, and
that's pretty cool.
It's kind of perfect because as soon as I heard about it, I was just like, oh, this is like the job that I always wanted and was already kind of like doing for myself, but never knew existed.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of perfect.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Leighton, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, always fun talking.
Yeah, totally.
We'll have to find the top of another waterfall and take our shirts off and pretend we're like kung fu masters again at some point.
I'll bring some swords this time.
Yes, you gotta show me the way. You gotta show me the way of the sword. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing, and a lot of insight, I think, today for what it takes to kind of break through into this kind of work. And we'll have to have you back on at some point in the future.
I'd love to be back,
It'd be super cool, man.
It's always great chatting with you.
Totally, man. Likewise. All right, well, that's it for Shot Talk for this week. We'll see you guys next time.
If you'd like to see more of Leighton's work, you can find him on Instagram at Leighton_Hickman_art. Also, if you're enjoying this music, you can follow me at inexpensivejew.bandcamp.com. And finally, if you've enjoyed this episode of Shot Talk and would like to see more episodes in the future, please consider contributing to the Shot Talk Patreon. You can sign up today at patreon.com/shottalk. There are all types of rewards, like receiving episodes early, access to private Discord servers, and more. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.